Day 4. Sanctuary. Edward hopped onto the carriage with only seconds to spare, and judging by the sea of pinstripes and newspapers that met him immediately behind the door, only a few inches of space to spare too. It was a sweltering July morning and he could already feel the starch prickling his neck at 7:45. It could be worse. One poor chap, older and considerably portlier than Edward, was pressed up against the door on the opposite side, droplets of sweat pit-patting with some regularity onto his copy of the Times, as if they were being squeezed out of him. The idea of finding a seat was a far-away one, so Edward settled in as best he could, mercifully close to an open window, propped between a tall gent with a bowler hat, quite a pungent aroma, and a short one who, quite improperly by Edward's estimation, insisted on holding his briefcase rather than sitting it between his legs. And so, the next 50 minutes to Waterloo was spent inhaling the increasing odour and being jabbed in the thigh at every bump, turn and break. The walk to the office was a relief at first. As Edward reached Westminster Bridge, it seemed the contents of every club in a 30-mile radius had too. If he wasn't stuck behind an elderly man who surely should be in his rose garden by now, sloping precariously from side to side, he was being hustled from the left or right by some precocious upstart who managed to clip Edward with a brogue or umbrella tip as he passed for good measure. Umbrellas! What pessimism, thought Edward, even for London, as he squinted against the sunlight bouncing up off the Thames and felt the inside brim of his own hat growing damp. By late morning, he had caught his breath a little. The tall windows of Orchard House were open and the dim, panelled walls and corridors had probably not seen sunlight in 100 years, which only helped. He allowed himself a cup of tea and lit his pipe after lunch, and endeavoured to clear enough by the end of the day to at least see the top of his desk again. The permits for the new bus terminal in Dulwich were proving thorny with the local traders, and Mr. Brooke, his manager, was only too kind to keep reminding him. 4 o'clock came, and with alacrity, 5 o'clock came along right behind it. Edward knew, if he carried on like this, the trains would be down to 1 an hour, and his dear sweet wife might not be either of those adjectives by the time he sat down to dinner. So, with regret, he slipped the top half of the nearest stack of paper under his arm and dashed out, waving a curt goodbye to Mr. Brooke's empty chair as he went. Out into the street, almost flattened by the number 11, past the ducks splashing around on the other side of the fence in St. James's Park, nod to a pram and its attendant mother, and slam! Straight into the shirt front of a man clearly in too much of a rush to get home, a kindred spirit. "Watch where you're bloody going!" There hadn't even been time to tut at the choice of language as the stack of papers exploded out from under Edward's arm. 1 or 2 went down, stamp on those, but the rest, somehow, in the airless heat of a London summer's evening, managed to fly in all directions. Some shot forwards, into the crowd, 1 or 2 crossed the road and went to join the ducks, permanently it seemed to him. Those going backwards were already out of sight, but a couple, 1 or 2, surely the most important, were idling down a quiet side street. Edward had his target. But prey has an irritating knack of knowing its prey, and as Edward strode, harumphing, towards the sheets, they sped up, now left, now forward, up, down. One capitulated, exhausted, and fell into Edward's grasp, but the other spurred on, charged on, taking a corner, then another. With a final swoosh, it headed up, up, and at the extent of Edward's leap, his university track and field days weren't so long ago, he grabbed it, and had no idea where he was. At that moment, he felt a cool breeze, like water, cross his cheek, the same breeze that had almost lifted the piece of paper to freedom, and it was coming from a small, open door. The passage, dark and quiet, seemed to go down from the pavement, and could have been there since Pepys, or Alfred for that matter. Trains and permits and scowling wives left Edward's mind as his feet carried him over the threshold. His heels clicked on worn stone steps, some steep, some worryingly shallow, the cool air not musty, as he might have expected, but almost perfumed, so fresh for a dark underground tunnel. The silence wrapped around him, the sense of something ahead leading him on, and he was right. As if from nowhere, a room was before him, small but well furnished. A chaise longue of night-dark green velvet stood with its pawed feet on a broad, intricate rug. Dim gas lamps in thorny iron sconces picked out the shapes of tiered bowls of fruit on delicate wooden tables with their bright lace doilies. An imposing pair of velvet curtains in the back suggestively hid what seemed to be more space, more dim, with a couple of armchairs and tete-a-tete corner for playing what looked like chess. There was a scent of blossom hanging over everything, the sparkling water glasses, the frilly ferns in their heavy earthenware pots. As Edward sank down onto the sofa, he felt lighter, lifted. His feet seemed to sigh as he slipped off his shoes. He shivered with pleasure as he took a draught of water. His eyes closed. He sank a little deeper, and as his breathing slowed and steadied, as his muscles softened, quietly and imperceptibly to someone drifting off to sleep, the door to London closed.